Welcome back to Healthspan Horizons. My name is Melissa. I'm here with Jasmine and Klaudia from Biostrap today, and we are going to chat a little bit more about Biostrap as a company, their initiatives, their missions, what they do, and how they interact with and benefit longevity. So super excited to have you here today, Klaudia.
Thank you so much for having me, Melissa and Jasmine. I'm looking forward to diving in deep because there's a lot of buzz around longevity and health span, and I'm glad that Biostrap is playing a role in getting people into the world of longevity and making their body a little bit more self-aware.
Yeah, I'm really excited to dive into the backstory of it. For those who don't know, we've recently become partners with Biostraps, which is really exciting. So Claudia, can you give me a little bit of like backstory of how Biostrap was founded and created, and kind of what you guys, how it came to be?
So we are about to celebrate 8 years being in business. I think it's going to be June that Biostrap is old, and our founder Samir Santaki, the whole genesis of Biostrap came about his personal story because, as many startups, there's create a company after solving or wanting to solve a personal issue. So it sort of started out with him going through this lifestyle transformation, this transformation of losing 70 pounds and his waist going from 40 to 28. And he realized how much health is playing an important role in how it was during the time that his first daughter was born. So he really wanted to create something for the future. And he realized how much wearable technology plays a role in understanding your life makes an impact in how your physiology recovers and your physiology changes and adapts to different stressors. So he wanted to create something that makes all of these lifestyle choices more quantifiable. And that's where sort of Biostrap came into the world. And his background is in software engineering. He was already in this world of computer science. And it was a nice marriage of software engineering and data combined with health. And that was the time that a lot of the other wearable technologies were starting to come to the market. So it was the right time to, be part of that game where we are providing individuals the tools that they need to help them enhance their life in various different ways, from sleep to recovery, and now starting into autonomic nervous system quantification. So we'll dive into that a little bit later. So yeah.
I am so interested in that. I'm a big wearable user myself. I don't have a Biostrap. That's going to be next on my list, but I have an Oura Ring, an Apple Watch, and all those things. So can you tell me a little bit about the wearable itself? Like, how is it different from others on the market? And like, why would you choose that over, per se, an Oura Ring or an Apple Watch, or you use it in conjunction with it? What are your thoughts?
So this is a question that we get all the time, just because all the other wearables, the Auras, the Whoops, and the Apple Watches are such massive brands that people are curious, how is your wearable that I perhaps have never heard of actually is set apart from those other wearables? And what it comes down to is really that data integrity. Ever since Biostrap was established, our CEO really wanted and founder really wanted to providing high quality data. And it started out with really providing that high integrity, very granular data that Biostrap has always been able to provide to individuals in a way that they can see the filtered data as well as the raw data if they wanted to back in the day. And now we're really just focusing on providing these advanced features. So through the wristband device, I'm just going to show very easily. It's a very subtle device because it's particularly focused on capturing the data. It's not pinging you if you have been sitting for too long or needing to take a deep breath, or it's not about looking at your text messages and emails, but it's really that device that you want on your wrist to forget about, so it can just collect data. And then it connects to the cell phone, just much like all the other different wearables, where you can get all of the insights that our algorithm pushes out for you to look at. And another aspect, so it uses green light PPG, which penetrates deep under the skin to really pull out that granular beat to beat, very detailed data that we can use to capture real-time heart rate and HRV and all the other metrics that many of your audience and community is already familiar with. And really that honing in on that data integrity, what really Biostrap has been really proud of, to provide individuals data integrity. Plus, when we are tapping into this B2B, we're working with researchers, working with healthcare institutions, they can actually utilize that data and run their own algorithms on that data to develop new biomarkers, which is going to be a lot that goes into how, once we'll talk about a little bit more in the future, a wearable and how Biostrap fits into that picture. So.
Awesome. Again, congratulations on the 8-year anniversary as well. Yes, I guess you're already starting to get into that a little bit. Like, how do you see the impact of this device and what you guys are doing at Biostrap on specifically the field of longevity and biomarkers and extending health span?
Really good question. And personally, I mean, I love the talk of longevity, and having data on your body and on your health is one of the biggest things that you can do to really start to understand which trajectory you are on when it comes to your lifespan and health span. Because this data pretty much puts up a mirror that whatever you're doing is either helping you or hurting you. And that's where Biostrap truly fits in, because while we are providing all of the data points that many other wearables do, the heart rate variability, the very nitty gritty sleep parameters and sleep architecture data points. Beyond that, what really is unique and new to Biostrap is honing in on understanding your autonomic nervous system balance. A lot of research have shown that having autonomic nervous system dysfunction and imbalance really triggers this chronic inflammation, this chronic sympathetic response that eventually ages you. So really understanding where your autonomic nervous system stands and how your sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system, what's the tug of war and which one is pulling which into what direction. So through these different spot checks, what we call, Biostrap is able to give you real-time feedback on where you are at this moment. Like, I could sit down for 3 minutes right now and do a physiology autonomic nervous system scan with this wristband, and it will tell me on a scale 1 to 10 on each side, where does my autonomic nervous system balance is. Ideally, right now, it would be very high in sympathetic and low in parasympathetic. But if I were to sit down and do a 5-10 minute breath work, I want to see that balance shift into more parasympathetic. So these little nuances will allow people to really start to understand how their habits and lifestyle choices impact their nervous system balance. And because of the world we live in, we are in high sympathetic majority of the time, which obviously wreaks havoc on our sleep. It destroys our recovery, and it really doesn't allow that physiological adaptation to occur overnight that we want to see. So one of the things that I think a lot of people would benefit from picking up in terms of understanding their ANS, autonomic nervous system balance, is especially as we wind down to go to sleep. You want to see your parasympathetic increase and your sympathetic decrease, just so your body is getting into that rest and digest, into that restorative phases and mechanisms to occur overnight. If you're not doing that and you're, watching the news at night and still sending the last email before your head hits the pillow, it's really difficult for your body to all of a sudden, all right, I need to sleep now and I need to restore. It doesn't happen that fast. So where Biostrap really fits into that health span and longevity is that giving you the tools that really allow you to understand your autonomic nervous system, this extra additional piece of data that really allows you to see where my recovery stands and how can I best optimize it to really, in the long run, create habits that will increase my resilience, that will increase my anti-fragility, as we like to call it in this world of longevity and just sort of health span world. And it sort of leads into a few of the partnerships that I'm going to be able to talk a little bit about that we're working on that really is very novel in the industry of tracking data and making sense of not only your physical, but a little bit more of your emotional health too. I hope that answers the question, by the
This
way,
is,
because
I
I
feel like,
go down on rabbit holes and just kind of like, whoa.
no, I love this. I feel like honestly, this right now is such a buzzword on social media. I mean, there's so much on my TikTok, even just talking about like high cortisol and all of these stresses, and basically how what you're doing in your life is contributing to this, of like endlessly scrolling at night and like not shutting your phone off, or not getting up while you're working and only staring at screens and things like that. So I think it's such a thing that more people are becoming aware of now, of like, hey, this actually has an impact
Yes.
on how your health is and how your future health is as well. It's something that I think it's hard for all of us, especially those that work remote, to turn things off
Yes.
and not look at emails and not respond to things throughout the day slash evening. But it's something that I'm really consciously trying to work on in the last couple of weeks, of me being like, no, I need to like be done. I need to put my phone away. I need to like take away and take a break for a little bit to try and like bring that back in. So I think it's such an impact, and I'm curious to see how in the future all of our screens are going to play a role in what we do and how our longevity is in the future and such as well.
I love that. And I think it is really important. And really, where wearable technology comes in is that you start to understand how those small habits make impact, and how they really trigger that different response in your body that is less restorative than what you would watch in a routine. As much as it sounds like a cliche and everybody is like, oh, I'm doing this, it really does help. Yeah.
It's hard to implement, though. It is.
Yeah, because life always
Okay,
happens.
so you kind of
Yeah.
right. And honestly, I think especially as a lot of people, that's kind of like your break away. For me, it's like, okay, I'm finally in bed. Yeah, I do want to like scroll, or I want to read a book on my Kindle or things like that. It's like, okay. And in reality, it's like, hey, this actually isn't super helpful, other than like the mental game that it's
Yeah,
really
it's a
playing.
different type of relaxation. It's not the kind you need for like sleep necessarily, but it's more
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm chilling now kind of thing.
Right,
Yeah.
but you still
Yeah.
constantly, even with those
I
scrolling, you want those dopamine hits. I mean, it's what it's giving you. It's
Yes.
constantly lighting up those reward little bulbs in your brain. Oh, this is interesting. This is cool. And but instead of, but what you want at night is more of that serotonin or maybe oxytocin boost that really helps that melatonin production to occur. So you want dopamine in the morning, but you might want little different neurotransmitters at night.
So our takeaway right off the bat is, okay, we're all going to put our phones down and we're all going to do some meditation or relaxation tonight instead of
Or
doing such
journal.
things.
That's
That's what we'll take away from this.
yes.
or journal or journal. I can't say I've ever done that in my adult life,
It's
but
huge.
I have been feeling the need to change my bedtime habits. So maybe I'll put that in.
It really helps. I journal in the morning, and I've found it to be very impactful in how my brain starts to wake up. And instead of going from that morning theta to beta, I can sort of transition into a little bit more balanced awakening in a way that I can journal and just figure out my day and say some things I'm grateful for. And just, it really helps. It's good
All
stuff.
right, you've convinced me. I feel like
Try
I need to be more of an adult, and I need to
it. Yeah, it's great.
I love it. Okay, Claudia, you briefly hinted at like some partnerships that you can and cannot talk about.
Yes.
Can you tell me the ones that you can talk
Okay.
about, or things that you guys are excited that you're working on with
Yes.
other companies right now?
So something that really is becoming quite a trend and a very emerging topic is that emotional health. So wanting to be and being at the cutting edge of wearable technology and digital health, we have built partnerships with companies where we are starting to look at how to quantify your emotional state. And obviously, this goes beyond just autonomic nervous system quantification, but really understanding whether you're agitated or more content, or are you having discontent or any type of less ideal emotional states. These things really allow you to understand your triggers, and this is something that is in the works, but we're very excited to tap into this realm of emotional state quantification in a way that's meaningful for individuals. One of the companies that we work with is In Truth. I did get the green light to share that, which is very exciting. And they're also a startup, but they're doing some amazing things using data from the Biostrap Kairos to quantify emotional state. And I've had a chance to dabble a little bit with their beta app, and it's very interesting to see where I stand on the scale of being content or sometimes being agitated. And it's interesting to see sometimes when I'm on a call and I feel a little bit unease, and I just look at the app. Yeah, you were agitated here. So it kind of helps you connect the dots in a new way you may have been able to before, because now at first we were able to understand, physiological response to stress. My HRV is dropping if I'm drinking alcohol, or my heart rate or my resting heart rate increases and I'm going into my late phase of my cycle as a woman. So these things it's been part of our life for quite a few years now to understand physiological changes, but now there's a huge rush in understanding your emotional state and psychological response to the life around you and your environment. So we're very excited to be part of that and see how things evolve and how we can really quantify that mental fitness. So that's what's exciting.
That sounds like a super exciting collaboration and use case. I mean, I'm really interested in things like that, like kind of extending beyond sort of the normal physiological things that we think about, and what extends our health span and lifespan, like mind over matter type of things. Like how much does our thoughts
Yes.
and intentions and things like that actually impact the capacity for how long we can live, and even overcoming health challenges that may seem like the odds are stacked against you.
Of course.
So I think that's really exciting.
100%, because we've seen over the course of research that our thoughts and emotional state will impact our physiological state. You can start to feel scared, and all of a sudden your cortisol raises and your heart rate starts to rush, your blood pressure increases, all of the things that your sympathetic nervous system is responsible for gets into action. And all it had to do is you potentially feeling a little scared or feeling any type of anxiety from something that's happening. So a lot of the times it's the thoughts that will trigger that physiological action, while at the same time, physiological tasks can also impact your emotional state. So it's a bit of a back and forth and a two-way street as opposed to just one-way direction. And something that I think this world of health and longevity has really relied on heart rate variability and HRV. I don't know about everybody or most people, but I'm definitely guilty of being obsessed with, I need to see my HRV get higher, because that's supposed to be associated with increased resilience and just a healthier and longer life. And my HRV baseline is like 44, and my brother's baseline is 100. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong? It's not fair. And certainly to a lot of different aspects of HRV. I mean, obviously it's very individualized. So everybody needs to understand that whatever is your HRV should not be compared to everybody else's. And something that I recently have started to understand in conversation with different HRV experts is that instead of wanting to increase your HRV and being obsessed with wanting to get higher, you want to have it stable and kind of use it as a feedback loop on a day-to-day basis of how it changes. And it can be especially useful for women as we go through, especially cycling women, because it changes quite a bit as we go through our different phases. So, yeah.
I know. I feel like I need to look at mine. I'm pulling it up. I'm pulling my Aura app on my phone so I can be like, what was my HRV right now? Because it always says you could do better at this. But it's funny how, like you mentioned, your brother. I feel like that's such like a women and men thing. I mean, you can talk about like how men can stop eating potato chips and they'll lose like 20 pounds, and women will stop and they'll gain like 5. Everything is so different and so uncomparable between men and women, or 30-year-olds versus 50-year-olds and things like that.
And it's like, very individualistic. I mean, gender, genetics, so age, lifestyle habits, everything impacts HRV. HRV, it's a very hyper alert metric. Everything that you do or think will have an impact on it.
Yeah.
So you just have to be a little bit
Yeah.
more careful and not so obsessed.
I would like to think that hopefully in the future, as this becomes again like a more normalized thing, that maybe this helps with mental health and anxiety and things like that, of like recognizing, hey, my body's actually responding this way because of the way that I'm thinking about something. And hopefully, I know a lot of it is, not necessarily controllable when you have a mental health disorder or things like that. But there's so many things that we can do as people to kind of help support our brain
Yeah.
function and things like that. And maybe recognizing like, okay, I need to breathe. I need to take a second. I need to meditate and let me bring this back down, or I need to put my phone away, or something that can be more tangible than just like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so stressed right now and I don't
Yep.
know what to do. It's like these quantitative numbers can help support people that are really struggling with such things.
Yep. 100%.
Hopefully in
Yeah.
the
One of
future.
the interesting partnerships that we have been really proud of is, and we like to refer to it as one of our big milestones recently, where we're able to tap in the first responders market, particularly in the UK and Canada, where they're utilizing Biostrap in a way to start to understand the health of police officers and really start to understand how much their sleep, recovery, and fatigue are impacted with just the line of duty that they're in, and what are some of the things that they start to intervene and improve their resilience in a way that's meaningful. And there were a lot of eye-opening stories that I've heard as I was talking to our partners, how they would suggest to this individual, everything is of course, which I think they'll talk a little bit about, but everything can be very de-identified for Biostrap. So if it's needed, we don't need to know who is who, system. So at times where there was an individual where they were complaining, or they were just a little disappointed that in the morning they had this low recovery score and low HRV. So their sort of organization lead suggested to them, or at least first asked, what did you do the night before? And like, I came home from my shift, had a big dinner, and then just watched and sat down and watched the news before going to bed. So he was suggested, why don't you, spend some time with your family, have the TV off, or have some documentary, or have some, National Geographic or something easeful on, and don't worry about all of the stresses of the world. So he did that day and woke up with a much higher recovery score and a much higher HRV. So it really just allowed them to see how the social interactions, just unplugging from all of the negative news that is bombarded into our life on a daily basis, especially already working in an environment that's highly sympathetic, coming home and spending time in a setting where you're prioritizing things that are upregulating your parasympathetic nervous system and really allowing you to unwind. And these little realizations where, oh, these things actually make an impact, is what we see is very eye-opening to those who are new to just understanding data and really tapping into this, connecting the dots of how my life impacts my health.
Yes. I think I'm excited. I'm a data person. I love seeing all that stats about myself. So I always get excited to see more and more stuff about that. So, okay, I'm going to ask both of you this question actually, since, in the beginning of this, we mentioned Rejuve and Biostrap have recently became partners. I would love to hear kind of what both of your thoughts are on how both will work together, data sharing, what you want to do in the future, what we're doing now, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know if you guys want to fight over who wants to answer first, or
I'll let you, Jasmine, go first, and then I'll piggyback off of you.
Jasmine. Yeah, I was gonna say, Jasmine, do you want to go? Do you want to go first? Yeah, go for
Sure.
it.
Yeah, I mean, even from this conversation here, wheels are turning. So that's why, I love these things. Just getting into these kind of like deeper, more technical, and even, kind of worldly conversations about, what the potential and possibilities are. One of the things we want to do with the Rejuve platform is decentralized clinical trials. So we want to be able to actually measure, what type of effects that everyday interventions and kind of areas of research that are not well researched, that we are lacking data in. such that we can do things like, how do emotions affect, an outcome of a certain disease or biomarker, for instance. Being able to create digital biomarkers or kind of hybrid digital and physical biomarkers. How is your, state at this particular time doing this particular activity and taking this supplement, affecting, a certain outcome, and how is that overall affecting gene expression or things of that nature. So there's just so many possibilities of what we can really do. And also, one of the things I was kind of thinking of originally in this was being able to have, a device that's kind of calibrated for our platform and the things that we want to collect, and being able to have that in our marketplace in exchange for the RJB token itself, so that there's like kind of this positive feedback loop of people contributing or sharing their data, with the network, earning the rewards, and then using that to obtain more products and services to benefit their health. And one of those can be Biostrap wearable devices, because not all of our users actually have wearable. Like probably about like half of them do. So there's still a lot of people out there who are looking for them, and this is one way that they can obtain them.
That's awesome. And I love that Biostrap is able to be part of this type of initiative, because it seems to be such a perfect fit, because the people you are targeting, the people in your ecosystem, are already very interested in data, and they want to contribute to develop new products and really create a system where we are all learning more about how our body responds to different stressors, different triggers, and anything that is happening around in our environment or in our internal environment. So just being able to provide the tools that will make your future possible in a way that is meaningful and that can really create something new for the future of those who want to have a deeper understanding that goes beyond how many hours of sleep I got last night. And we're definitely going to that direction where people are becoming more interested. They want the data, but still there is that little limitation of how do I interpret all the data that is here. So providing the platform and just an access to all of this information, I think, is very meaningful.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the actionable
Yes,
insights. That's really what people are
100%.
looking for. And, it goes along this whole thread of, personalized wellness, precision medicine, all this kind of thing where, yeah, it's not just, okay, these facts, yeah, I'm sleeping like crap. Okay, so what do I do? And like, what is the implications of it, and all this sort of thing. And yeah, the educational thread that runs through it. And also, yeah, just enhancing our wellness, which is kind of going in extension of just everyday health. Wellness is kind of the step above
Yep.
that, I think.
Yeah, you nailed
Yeah.
it. I think that actionable
Thanks.
insights are where the true value is, because everything impacts everybody so differently, and you can follow XYZ and it's not going to have the same impact on you, but it takes a lot of trial and error to figure out what are the things that actually working for me, and then and just having that access and those actionable insights. But hey, you've been taking this supplement for a while and it's actually giving you really good results and outcomes. So I think those are very helpful. Just need the right data and the accurate data, which is key.
Yeah. So
Yes.
and kind of tying into that, but I guess going back to a bit more practical things. So yeah, since people are sharing, such personal and intimate data on both of our platforms, we're collecting all of this stuff. How does Biostrap actually address the privacy and security aspect, and ensure that their data is secure and
Super
safe?
good question, because this is one of the things that some wearables maybe don't go the extra mile, but Bioshare really hone in on and wanted to provide security for your data. The data that we collect in your wrist is yours. You can even request it if you need it. And it's fully HIPAA compliant. Because we work a lot in healthcare and in different research settings, we made sure that all of our security is up to date, and if it needed to be encrypted, the identified data for patients or individuals, that's definitely an option. So it can be fully anonymous and always 100% secure. And We never sell the data. We don't work with any other data companies where we're sharing data. So it stays on our servers. It's not gone anywhere. So it's always been one of the biggest things that we wanted to provide, is that security is of the utmost importance, and privacy for Biostrap. And even that was one of the things that on an organizational level, the organization in the UK was very impressed that we can have de-identified data for each of the officers, because privacy is important and we want to provide that.
That's super good to know.
Yeah.
I think that's everybody's. It's one of those buzzwords where everyone is just like so always concerned about like, well, are people going to know that it's me? Like my personal opinion is like, I don't care if some researcher knows that it is myself with all of this health data. Like, but there's a lot of people, especially in our like Web3 space, that feel very passionately about not sharing their identity or anything that's like would be able to identify them. So it's always a hot button question that we get asked on a regular basis about our app or our partners or wearables or things like that. So always always beneficial to make sure that we're like, oh no, don't worry.
Because there are companies out there that pay millions of dollars for email addresses and for information on individuals so they can target their advertisement. And I mean, I can't count how many emails I get that I don't understand how I signed up for. Like, I don't get it. So, yeah.
Right. I actually just saw, I mean, I'll be honest, my scrolling involves TikTok as like a millennial where I'm like, I shouldn't be on this app, but I'm going to use it anyways. But I just saw that like Facebook sold your personal messages to Netflix so that Netflix could target you based off of your conversations. This like just popped up in the news yesterday or something like that. And I was like, yes, right? Where you're like, this data privacy thing is just so wild where it's like, you think that things are safe, and in reality, nothing on the internet.
You're using it for free really because you are the product,
to be honest. So, yes, which so many people don't understand when they're just like, oh yeah, I love Google. It's like, yeah, well, Google loves you too. So it works out for both of us, I guess. Yeah. All right. We only have a couple questions left because we got to go wrap this up. But okay, so this is a personal question for you. So how long have you worked with Biostrap?
5 years now, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So how do you feel like your health or your interest in longevity and such has changed since you started working there? Like, have you done anything different? Have you...
A lot.
What are your thoughts?
It's changed a lot. So I've always been, not always been, but most of my adult life, I was always very interested in health and figuring out what I need to do to really optimize my cognitive and physical and just emotional health in many ways. And up until using Biostrap, I had no ways to quantify whatever I'm doing was working or not. So one of the first things that I noticed is how my behaviors and habits are impacting my sleep, HRV, and resting heart rate. And as a woman, about a couple years into using Biostrap, so it wasn't even right away, I started to get a little bit more interested and intrigued and curious about how my hormonal changes change my data. Because I'm like, I don't know, it may not. And of course it does. And now there's a lot more information out there. Obviously, and other wearables have really tapped into this and they started to track hormonal health and menstrual cycles for women a lot more in depth. And that was one of the things that I noticed at the time too, that yes, my stress response is higher during certain times of the month. And I need to prioritize a little bit more parasympathetic focused activities and really dial down my stress. I don't need to push 110% all month long because I have a 28-day cycle with a 24-hour cycle with the different hormones changing. So it really opened my eyes to how many different aspects of my physiology impact my data. And I started to really, at the beginning, I was highly obsessed with like, okay, I'm going to do this and it's going to impact this. And I get really excited when I see my HRV go up for a week and I'm like, yes, I'm doing something great. And then a month later, it just goes back down. So, and then I get disappointed. So I started to take data with a little bit of grain of salt and not rely on it fully. So I think that a lot of people will eventually go into, as they dabble more in this realm of data, is that objective data is great, but I need to meet that with my subjective understanding of how I'm feeling. So I stopped from 100%. I take it as a guidance, as a clue, and then just kind of seeing what it tells me. And more often than not, it's pretty matched with how I'm feeling, which is really neat. And really allowed me to understand the connection between having a late night meal or having a high carb late night meal that will wreak havoc on my sleep and my data. And or I mean, of course, alcohol, we all know that will mess you up. So, and not only what things that are impacting my data negatively, but it was to see things that are having a positive effect. And it's just really choose on, okay, I need to do this, I don't need to do this, that makes no difference. So just I've become a lot more aware of what I'm doing, and now it's become more of an autopilot. Like I know I need to do this, and of course I live and I'm going to make mistakes, but I don't beat myself over on it because I know, okay, I'm just going to take some extra time tomorrow, the next day, and prioritize recovery. Maybe I'm going to sit in my infrared sauna for a little bit. Maybe I'm going to go out for a walk, prioritize the sun, and just maybe ground a little bit. So do the things that I know will have a positive impact so I can mitigate and offset all of the bad stuff that I may have done the previous day. So it's really finding that balance. And and having a wearable, especially Biostrap, really helped me to understand. And now we have the autonomic nervous system balance that really helps me see a little bit more in depth into how acute positive stressors, particularly positive because that's the things that I generally try to quantify, impact my ANS. Like I notice when I do a 15-20 minute Theragun session, it shifts my balance into parasympathetic super fast. And it just reinforces that behavior. So it tells me, hey, what you're doing is good and your body loves it. So I'm gonna do it and more frequently. And the same thing with meditation or breath work and all of that. You don't always know it actually works. So having the data that shows you, yes, it does shift your nervous system into a restorative state, then I become more inclined to, okay, I might not feel like doing it, but I'm going to do this and I know I'm going to feel better. So really just becoming a lot more self-aware and know if I'm doing X, Y is going to happen and why that thing is happening. It really does allow me to become a lot more conscious and more self-aware. And that's something that I think is important for anybody if you want to extend your health in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I think I actually did not even really realize, circling back to what you said about like women and your cycle and everything like that. I didn't realize or really pay attention to how the specific like 4 different phases that you have throughout your month. And so it like blew my mind like several years ago when I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. Like I was just like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
ovulation, menstruation, boom, got it. But when you take into account and you quantify that, and like I said, my data says the same thing of like, hey, you might want to rest a little bit
Mm-hmm.
today because you're in this phase. I'm like, oh my gosh,
I
that makes
know.
so much more sense. And then that positive reinforcement that you talked about that comes with that of like, hey, my body likes this, or hey, maybe I shouldn't eat nachos and wings right before I go to
Yeah.
bed because I slept terrible last night. Just being able to like actually quantify what your actions are doing, I think is going to play
Yeah.
such an important role in
And
the future. We talked about this. I think we've talked about it with everybody that's been on here about like perfectionism and how it's like it's better to have like 70% success like
yes.
over a lifetime rather than
Yes.
100% for a short period of time. And I think that being able to like quantify what you're doing with this data kind of helps you keep that 70% of like, oh yeah, let me just tweak this and let me just adjust this, and not like going like this constantly and falling off the
Yeah, and you want
bandwagon and jumping
progress
back
over
on,
perfection.
and things like that.
It's a much healthier way of doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and be curious. I think something that sometimes people who are getting this realm of wearables, they they don't like the data, or why does it keep telling me? And wearable technology is not supposed to add more stress to your life. Like, it's supposed to help you understand your body, and don't get upset over it. It's just be curious and want to figure out, like, okay, this happened. It's telling me X. What could I have done that resulted in this drop or in this increase or in this bad score? So I really encourage a lot of people to just be curious. I mean, that's the whole realm of longevity and healthspan. There's so much science that's still undiscovered, and we just have to be curious and know that there's a lot of unknown. We're all trying to live as healthy as we can, as long as we can, but there are going to be a lot of questions along the way.
Exactly. All right, Jasmine, do you have one final question, or you want me to ask?
Um, sure. So I guess yeah, we've talked about the kind of ways that technology like this is impacting us today and here and now, and even what the possibilities are. But I guess what do you think, Claudia, about the future of health monitoring? Do you think, or how do you see the future of wearable technology evolving, and the role that Biostrap can play in
Yeah,
it?
that is the question of the day. Where is it all going?
Yeah, we like to look
Yeah.
future going at
And
horizons,
I think it's going to get even more personal than what it is. I mean, people are understanding that, all of the data that a lot of these wearables are showing you, they are becoming, HRV, respiratory oxygen saturation. But I think what's wearable devices, and the more accurate they're going to get and the more standardized they're going to get, we're going to be able to see a lot more health condition specific biometrics. Like, for example, Biostrap has been working a lot with the Children's Hospital of LA in developing a new biomarker, particularly to help detect vaso-occlusive crisis, which is a pain crisis for sickle cell disease patients. Because of the data that can be captured with wearable devices like Biostrap, I think it will allow researchers to become even more specific in predictive algorithms that will allow us to understand problems before they manifest. So I think wearable technology and wearable health tech devices are going to the direction of becoming more preventative, of becoming more predictive. So we're not so responsive in this ecosystem of healthcare and not so reactive, which is what we are, but allow people to prevent issues before they were to happen. And having wearable technology, especially the integrity of data that Biostrap provides, it really allows the researchers, the healthcare professionals to get the data that they need to be at the forefront of of prevention, and not so we can kind of get ahead of all of these massive conditions that are wreaking havoc, and there are the causing the biggest mortality in our society today. So a lot of these massive killers of us, of humans, can be prevented if noticed early. So I think wearable technology can there to prevent these conditions before they occur, or at least provide the information that is necessary for individuals to take the necessary steps so they don't go down the road to chronic conditions and degenerative disorders and age-related conditions, because those can all be prevented if found early. So it's going to take time because we didn't get it 5 years, but everything has been a lot more exponential in terms of wearable technology. So we're already evolving more and more each year. So who knows in 5 years where we're going to be? But it's definitely going the direction of becoming more predictive and more precise.
That's something I'm like super excited about too. Is like shifting away
Mhm.
from this, yeah, like kind of reactionary model, to a more preemptive and preventative one. Being able to prevent more people from experiencing these diseases of aging, and
Mhm.
getting to the point where it becomes more normal, to live, long into your 90s and hundreds without having some kind of chronic illness, and then at that point in time, we'll be able to, kind of collectively push those limits once we kind of eliminate a lot of this kind of sickness that comes along with, long before people
100%.
usually get to that part.
I agree.
I think we've said that about like pretty much every call, like every person that we've talked to on here. The last one that we just did, we talked about like how in, 10, 20, 25 years from now, people will think it's so weird that we used to walk around with chronic disease and things that were not curable at our stage of life, like cancer and diabetes and things like that. And so hopefully we're kind of on this like pendulum swing of coming back to the preventative medicine. Because I feel like for so long, with the incredible creation of medicine and prescriptions and all that stuff, which is so helpful, we've kind of gotten away from like treating like your
Yeah.
body and not just like treating the symptoms. And so I'm hoping that like with the advancement of AI and wearables and things like that, that we can kind of come back from treating the symptom and actually like maintaining whole body wellness. And then hopefully we'll continue that. Is it going to work?
Yes.
I don't know. I guess you'll have to ask in 25 years from now if this is what we have, or if we're all, or if it's even worse. Who knows? But ideally,
Oh yes,
ideally, we're
nothing
all a little
happens in
bit better
isolation in the
off in
body, and
that period of
wearables
time.
have
So
really pinged us in understanding that everything always changes, even if you introduce one different thing. So it's such a systemic impact. We can't just treat one thing because it may not be enough. We'll come back in 25 years in the same podcast and we'll be like, oh, here
exactly.
we go. We
Well,
got it wrong or we got it right.
yes, here we go. This is we actually were 100% accurate 20 years later, right? That's our goal. That's our goal. Well, Claudia, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on here today. I'm going to go meditate. Well, I'm going to be mindful tonight. I'm going to put my phone down. That's my takeaway from this. I'm going to maintain my stress levels a little bit better. So I appreciate your insights and everything with us. And I'm sure we'll be chatting more after this. I know I can see Jasmine's wheels turning right now of being like, oh my gosh, we should do this. Or,
Oh
oh, we
yeah,
should talk about
it
this
was
in
a
the
pleasure
future.
to be
So
here. Thank you so much for your
appreciate it.
interest, and I'm so excited to have Biostrap be part of Rejuve AI and be part of the ecosystem that you're building, and provide the data to your community that they need to really tap into their longevity. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.